Welcome to Taking Stock. It's Monday, the 31st of July, 2023. And I got to say, ladies and gentlemen, your dreams have come true. You have two middle-aged Welsh bald men talking about stocks and shares. What more could you ask for?
What could be more attractive? What could be,
John's off.
Going to go nuts today.
Yeah, exactly. Well, John's off. Martin's here. He's the big boy at Vox, CEO there. And he's also... Yeah, he's borrowed John's flat there, because that's actually a real view at the back of John's window. There,
we actually live together. It's a little known fact. We're very close.
So, I'll look at that. First of all, starting off, it's Monday. The markets are dreadful. The weather's awful. Pretty much the indices are treading water by the looks of it. I think we're all looking ahead to that Bank of England meeting on Thursday, which of course 12 o'clock will be live for that because we changed times. 12 o'clock. We'll look at that. But what I want to talk about today, Mark, and there's a few comments from last week about investing versus trading. By the way, what would you say you are, an investor or a trader?
I run 3 or 4 different books, to be honest with you. I trade. I haven't been trading much recently, but I do trade off the charts a lot. As you know, I used to be a prop trader, so it's in my blood a little bit. But I don't look at fundamentals at all, and I don't fall in love with things. I just see things off levels, and I look at sort of very much the larger picture on a lot of the trading stuff I do. And then there's other things that I've got, my long-term investments in, which are property and things like that. I think it's important to do a bit of both.
Yeah. No, it is good to do a bit of both, I think. And I think I did say before, having the mindset of just being an investor or a trader boxes you in a little bit, because there's plenty of, if you're an investor and you look at fundamentals alone, you can really miss time at trade. Doesn't matter how good the valuation of a company is, unless the momentum is there with the stock and it's showing it in the chart. You can sit on, a drifting share price for a long time. And essentially, it's an inefficient allocation of capital. If you're just sitting there for like a year waiting for the share price to move, thinking, this is a good company, why is it not moving? That's where a little bit of charting comes in, and I think
it's fair to say I've made many short-term investments in my days that have ended up being long-term holds.
I know exactly.
The way they were supposed to.
By all means, get involved with the comments. Listen, we've got FRC, it's an unusual username, but he said, can you look at Polarean's news? We will look at that actually, because it's in the list anyway. It's one of the most read on the site. But also, Michael, hello guys. Day off today. It's the first time catching you live. Keep going.
Hello, Michael.
Yeah, and he's into Wand, I think, so we'll have a look at the chart of that. But we did get a lot of comments last week on investing versus trading. But let us know. And by the way, Alistair, who's done very well on trading, he said last week, it's possible to do both. He says that on a stock where I have high confidence in, it's a long-term investment, I'm happy to trade a small portion of my holdings where the price moves short-term. Yeah, it's good to do that. And also therapeutic, because you feel you are getting a trade buzz. Yeah, there is that. It is hard doing nothing. As an investor, you sit there doing nothing. And I know some of the best investors say they make their most money when they do nothing. But it is hard sometimes. You're just sitting there forever doing nothing. Is this it? So there is the compulsion. Humans want to do something, don't they? We feel they have to do something,
Well, that's the reason why so many people lose money trading stocks and shares, is because they're not prepared to admit when they're wrong. You could buy, there's thousands of books on trading, and they all say the same thing. They say, cut your losses, cut your losses, cut your losses. But very, very few people are prepared to do that. I think it's important that, if you invest in something and the reasons why you invested have changed, then you need to get out of it, There's no, that's one of the biggest problems with charts, and it happens fundamentally as well, is that it doesn't matter what the chart looks like. You can always find an indicator which will support your point of view. It could be collapsing down, but or the RS, you might convince yourself the RSI is just about to turn up and therefore it's a hold and things like that, which is a fool's fallacy, really.
Well, look at this. One of the most followed companies of late is Wand. Now, the momentum that is great, and but if you hadn't put a stop loss in there at 13 quid, you wouldn't
have got out because they got suspended, you see.
Yeah.
That's a new, because that was an out and out fraud. Well, it wasn't that. Well, it was an out and out fraud. Or there was a senior
sales executive. Which, but the thing is, he's a sales guy and he's manipulating the sales figures. I think he's getting a lot paid on commission. I don't know. Commission wise, he was doing very well. And then all of a sudden,
the grapevine, he wasn't getting anything, so that's why I was confused about. But I don't know. It all seems a bit suspicious. But there we are. I mean, look, the shareholders have certainly priced it keenly when they did the placing, and that was a it's not not for the faint-hearted, but last week I think it was a good opportunity to invest at 50p because the shareholders were, probably going to wanted to average themselves down into a more manageable position, didn't they?
Yeah. Let's talk about the subject of the day. A bit of a tease here. Rishi Sunak's come out. I'm going to find this next election. In fact, it's pretty much, Labour have to score some own goals, I think, to lose the election. But along sort of environmental lines, they're now drawing up the lines, whereas Labour are going for almost totally green, and they're almost backing, stop oil protesters, and the Conservatives are taking a view opposed to them. And in fact, Rishi Sunak's announced in this carbon capture scheme in Scotland today, and the 100 new licenses, oil and gas licenses. So I put on Twitter, and by all means, get involved in the survey there. Do you agree with the government confirming 100 new North Sea oil and gas licenses? And it's hard because, let's be honest, you can't just stop oil. I understand they're just trying to make an extreme point, because you can't just stop oil. It's ridiculous. We all know it's a transition. That's what it's all about. But, let us know where put in the comments. What do you think? I know there's a lot of investors in oil and gas. So as yet, that survey's a bit skewed towards, it's a good decision. Mark, what's your take on the oil and gas situation? Do you hold any oil and gas stocks?
Yeah, I think, look, in a perfect utopian world, we'd all be sort of living off the, solar and wind and everything else, and we wouldn't have to sort of use carbon at all. But look, it's a necessary. There's no way we're going to ever be able to produce in the UK enough energy from these sources. So we have to have oil and gas. It's going to be there. It's going to be a long time before we can all charge our cars and run our houses off solar and wind.
What I like,
the technology they've got.
Yeah, exactly. I know, but what I like though is the argument he made. And he said, we're going to need oil and gas for a long time, and we import a lot of oil and gas. And the carbon footprint on that is greater than if we produce oil and gas in the North Sea. Well, hang on a sec. The oil and gas market, though, is international. So you'd also export some of that oil and gas, and then we do that anyway. So the carbon footprint, and that's going to be the same. So it doesn't really make any sense. I suppose, it does keep jobs there. So that's a good thing. But I don't know climate change. If you go back 2 weeks and you'd ask me, is climate change happening? I say, yes, it's way too hot. And then today, it's like peeing down with rain outside, thinking, where's climate change?
It's like an autumn day here. I mean,
yeah. So I suppose it won't go straight up like a chart, the thing. But let us know anyway. Do you agree with government confirming there's oil and gas licenses? Is it good, bad? Everything seems to be extreme these days.
Is this a political play against Sadiq and his ULEZ?
Yeah, but that's the trouble, isn't it? I mean, the only place apparently they did badly, Labour recently, was in those areas of London where they extended those ultra low emission zones. So the Conservatives now said, right, we've got some voters there. We can cash in on. We're going to say we're against it. Climate change is not happening. But I just think we shouldn't be playing politics over something as serious as that. If it is happening and there's proof of it, then and what's wrong with cleaner air anyway? Let's go for a cleaner air environment anyway. If it's like about people say, do you believe in God? We'll say, well, listen. What's the harm in not believing God? Because if you get there and he does exist,
Justin, you're breaking all the rules now. We're not allowed to talk about God or religion or politics. Are we? We're talking about them both now. Let's stick to stocks and shares.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, let's say climate change isn't happening, and we go along this green renewables route, okay, and clean up the environment anyway. What's the harm?
No harm at all.
Yeah. All right. Rises of the day. I used to hold a bit of tertiary minerals, but they've let me just see. Oh, I got a recent load there. I always get to charts. Let me just put these up the chart, the screen, share the screen with you. And tertiary minerals, again, look at this. They've got some permissions to mine, I think it is. Now they're now in Zambia looking for copper. Copper, of course, massive, not only the traditional economy, but going forward with the new economy, more copper is needed in EVs and all that stuff. And in fact, we are going down that route, isn't we? We have to go down that route. Is it the last car you can sell? Oil and diesel is 2030, I think. Is that right? But you have to have hybrids.
No, you can't. I think it's purchasing them.
Yeah.
But that's, so, I think I was talking yesterday, they're encouraging, I mean, there's a lot of conservative backbenchers and all pushing the government, Sunak, to push out to 2035, which is probably more realistic, really. But I think 2030 is the current sort of cut-off date.
Okay, all right. Well, in fact, the front page of Vox here is a lot of good stuff on here. So get on there. Vox might just refresh. It's got Venture Life. We'll talk about that. The trading update, very good. Harland Wolff. We'll also cover a bit of that. The £60 million contract there. Some big numbers in their contracts.
Yeah.
That Department of Energy or Defense recently. That was like an AIM dream when you got a microcap stock landing a contract in the billions. I think that doesn't happen very often, you know.
No.
But scrolling down, let's look at the so most followed. Wanda's there. Just look at the chart. It is rallying off that placing. It was it 50 pence, $13 million.
50p,
they raised. Now you got Destiny, Aptamer. That's an interesting company there. The broker forecast on Aptamer was huge growth coming forward, but they've run into trouble. Some contracts got delayed, and now they've done a placing, and they've actually kicked out the entire board. And in fact, the new CEO.
That's a really unusual move. That is. I'm surprised the sort of nomads have allowed them to do that. I find it incredible that. I mean, it's you know. Well, anyway, look, they've done it. So
look at that. So this is a new CEO coming in September. A lady. In fact, there's a new CEO of BT. I don't think it's her, but she's a female CEO of BT. Yeah, but so she came in September. She kicked out by January, and then these backup board came in, and now the backup board is gone. But they were on the edge of going bankrupt, basically. But this is one of the biggest rises about a month back. It rose by several, I think, a couple of hundreds%. But they've been looking into the predictive values of, they got some kind of technology with another company about predicting dementia. And they call it dementia. If you're looking at investing companies, you go, what is the biggest problem the human has today? Pretty much the most popular death is cardiovascular. Below that, it's cancer. Below that, it's dementia. And you can't really do much with cardiovascular because it's pretty much a lifestyle. So cancer and dementia, if you can solve those two problems, that's why it's a huge area in the cancer bit. But these guys had some technology recently, Aptamer, and they were talking about dementia, predictive values. But if you look at Aptamer on the chart, look at the chart there. So it IPO'd in back end of the bull market there at 150 a share. It's now 2 pence a share, and But they got cash now. They got cash of 3.6 million.
That's value destruction on. Well, clearly it was the wrong price, wasn't it?
Yeah, but they've got cash, and they say they will be break even going forward. So that's one. Harland Wolff, like I said, worth looking at here because
really interesting company. That is really interesting, I think.
So the value of this contract is announcing was it
60.
Announce issue of a proceed notice, mid-life upgrade to dry dock in large vessel. Yeah, so 60 to 70 million is the revenue there. They're giving 5 million up front. I did look at the sort of forecast recently, and they are pretty much doubling their revenue from this year to next. So 100 million for this year, top line, 200 million for next year. They'll still be loss making, but they have a debt facility which they're restructuring. But they are winning the contracts, which is very interesting.
It's great for the UK as well, UK PLC, to have that coming in.
Yeah. This is a company I've loved for a long time. But I did the wrong thing. I had too much money into it. I was sitting on a nice, healthy profit. They went in for FDA approval, which was like, even the broker said there's an 80% chance they get this. And they didn't. The FDA knocked them back. And if you look at the chart on Polarean, which they have got, groundbreaking technology. There's no technology out there that can see COVID damaged lungs, apart from theirs. This is what. So I bought about 17 pence down here, something ridiculous. And near the IPO, I held. All I did was I averaged up a little bit, and you can see where the FDA knocked them back pretty much
on that day. You remember that day, Justin? I
know. In fact, a friend of mine, Pete, called it Brown Wednesday because he had stock as well, and he literally, the share price went down. But luckily, I didn't sell down here. I know it's a company that sold. I waited, and it bounced back up. And I sold a bit down here, but I still keep an eye on this. But the news up today is quite interesting because the University of Missouri Healthcare beginning clinical imaging with it's now past FDA, but the share price hasn't recovered. Now, it's a huge, they've just done a deal with Philips, one of the biggest MRI manufacturers around, so they incorporate their technology within that. Yeah. But the share price still hasn't bounced. I suppose it's it's like the bear market, isn't it? Really, people are now risk averse a little bit. But I'm thinking this should rebound. You're a 44 million company. I mean, Philips could buy this with a wink of an eye, at double the price, and it wouldn't bother them. So I'm just trying to understand. And someone did ask on YouTube there, what's going to be the catalyst that helps this re-rate? And I don't know. I mean, I put alerts at these levels to see when it starts to rise above that. But yeah, I don't know. It's an amazing technology.
Yeah, I think it's a sentiment thing now, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think people are probably sitting on their hands waiting for some significant news to come. And then I think there'll be, because obviously there's a lot of stale bears involved, and that's what's been seen the selling pressure coming in.
Yeah. So, do you know another company is one of the biggest risers today? I don't know if you've ever heard of these. I sort of heard them. I don't know what they do. Scancell Hlds. Yeah. And when you read some of these, you've got to be well researched, I suppose, because they're looking at cancer. But if you read that, it doesn't. I know it's in English. I know the words are in English, but I can't make head nor tail of it. It's like, what is going on there? But all you have to, so even if I came out,
who's the PR for it?
Well, Stifel. So it's Panmigol.
No, it's Concilium is the PR. So,
yeah. Okay. But it's like I understand it's good news. They got the go ahead basically. Modi 1 trial open for expansion in combination with checkpoint inhibitors. So even that itself. If you said someone,
what do they actually do?
Yeah, well, it's about cancer. I know. So if you scroll down, they say they are. Scancell is a clinical stage biopharmaceutical company leveraging its proprietary research built up over many years of studying the human adaptive immune system. Right. So they've got this proprietary stuff that's obviously, but that's it. If you're in the world of cancer, which is still, the
is it a proprietary treatment then, or what? I don't understand.
Does anyone? Well, exactly. If anyone, it's a rise in
biopharmaceutical.
So yeah. So I mean, if anyone's got any, inside on
yes.
I mean,
we should maybe speak to the company and see if, who's a CEO, Professor Lindy Durant. We should invite him onto the podcast, see if he can tell us what they actually do. Although if he's a prof, my experience of profs, they can't explain much at all. So
no. I mean, it's worth looking at, because I think anything in that space of cancer, so there's billions and billions spent on it, and if you provide some kind of breakthrough in research, then literally your share price will rally like crazy. And so it has rallied, but we are almost like it's bouncing off 12-month lows almost. So it's not really good stock to hold. But sometimes you get that technical bounce because the sellers have exhausted themselves, haven't they? And it's no many sellers left to sell. Okay, let's scroll down. So risers, Scancell, fallers. Most fallers. Most red was Harland and Wolff and Polarean. So one worth reading, and listen, when companies list, this is Metals One. They've listed a day, so their first day on the exchange there. And in fact, let me share with you their home screen on the website. But MET1 is ticker MET1 is ticker metals to power green future, and there's a bit about them there, and the Finland and Norway projects. But Mark, you know a bit about these.
Yeah, well, just for transparency, we do have exposure to this, so just to put it out there. But it's certainly not. I don't think it's a short-term play. I think it's a longer-term play. So really interesting projects they've got there. What's interesting, I mean, Kinross Mining were the operator of the Norwegian site. They put out some very positive indicators last week. So they got a full carry of about $15 million, which is pretty much the market cap of the company. But what I think is interesting is back in March of this year, the European Union brought out this Critical Raw Materials Act. And it's going to mean that European car manufacturers in particular must source or secure supply from ethically mined sources, which are close to the plants. So most sort of nickel, copper, cobalt is processed in the Philippines. But the trouble with that, it's a long way away, but it's also processed using Chinese coal. So it's quite hard to get the green credentials done under that. And there's also legislation in the pipe that OEMs must demonstrate sustainable sources for their carbon footprint of their battery. Yeah. So I think Metals One are perfectly positioned and on the doorstep of Europe. They're positioned perfectly. They're already operating there. I think this thing's going to fly out the door. Actually, we do hold them. So You know,
But just
interesting,
assume
very
we are.
interesting play though. I like them. And
And
it's a good
assume we're
management
biased.
team there as well.
I mean, exactly. Well, I say with any podcast, assume we're biased. Whenever someone talks about a stock, assume they own some, and you have to do your own research and be.
100%. It's not suitable for everybody. Everybody's portfolio and risk tolerance is completely different. You know. So that's the biggest problem. Nobody actually wants to do any research. They just want somebody to go down the pub and tell them what to buy, and then they can blame somebody else. You know.
Yeah, I'd like to know actually, has any pub tip ever worked out for you? It's like, have you ever just bumped into someone and said, yeah, they give you a tip, and then all of a sudden it's up by a couple of 100%. So I didn't do any research, just bought some on the Monday.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen.
It's like the old taxi driver analogy, isn't it? If the taxi driver is giving you tips on stocks and shares, it's too late. It's time to sell.
Yeah, exactly. Let's sort of get a venture. So it's Metals One. Have a look at that. VLG.
Stick it on your watch list. Staff Ballham. I think there's going to be some interesting news coming out in those, and they'd be well worth sort of having a look at. Do your research.
This is
the team. They've a proven track record and all that, so they tick a lot of boxes for me. I like them.
Yeah, and also, you know what? I found this. If you notice, IPOs dry up, pretty much when you get a bear market. They're starting to happen again now, and that's a good sign. And the best time to get involved, the worst time to get involved in IPOs is when there's easy money being thrown at every single company, because there's less due diligence around, and it's really cheap money, and no one cares about risk. But when there's at the bottom of the market and you're starting to turn, then there's good sort of projects get through, and also there's a lot more upside. You find IPOs. The amount of times I've looked at charts that have IPO'd in the bull market, of 2021, the top of the bull market, and the share price has gone all the way down. But now we're at the bottom of the market, and so they tend to do very well. IPOs do a lot better, after you've had that washout and after the bull market. I think we are coming out of it. Absolutely. It's been so many rallies in the last week or so.
We're also in the position with IPOs these days where there's a lot of IPOs. There's a lot of companies that are actually making it to IPO. They just can't raise the money, and anyone who is making an IPO, they're keenly priced. They're priced to go, because the brokers, for a start, don't want to market something that's going to go down 20% on the first day. So they want to get everyone in, and be nice to see some winners on the board.
Yeah, exactly.
It's nice to see an IPO on the board, along some winners.
Yeah. Well, it's Venture Life, risen today, trading update. And I know Paul is a big fan of these. He covers these quite often, gets Jerry on the podcast, but it's looking good. I mean, group revenues, if you notice there, at 23.5 million, up 24%, but 10% excluding acquisition. But what I quite like about this is, cash generated from activities up by 158%. And not only that, the order book has increased by 30%. So what you got there is they're generating more cash than they were, and their order book is, giving them some visibility ahead of stuff. So it's quite nice that. And in fact, let's look at the chart.
I think if you look at the chart, just they've fallen from sort of mid 40s or something down to here. I mean, so they're down sort of 30% or something, aren't they? 25%.
Yeah, look at that. I mean, look at that for a bottom. There's almost a straight line there at bottom. What I quite like is a break of the 50-day and then a break of a previous high. So it broke 50-day there, whereas let's go zoom in a bit there, and you want to break up previous highs pretty much here. So it's been that big sort of powerful update. When you get a big powerful update like that, that's a good sign, because it's like boof, right. And
they're demonstrating higher highs now, aren't they? So
and look at that, it's gone up from there, and now it's come back to that level. Look, pretty much that level-ish. So it's a good old rally, come back, a bit of a breather. Maybe that's ready for the next leg up. But someone just said to me, and I can't ignore this, because so first time, decent RNS from Destiny Pharma just out. Old Destiny Pharma. I was sitting there for ages, and they just went.
Do you? I didn't know that. Just
no. I just so I have to look at that. McBride. How's the worm turned to McBride? Let's look at the chart of McBride. Let's just quickly go to that. McBride. So I don't know. Let's share the screen. There we are. Oh, look at that for a big fall. Look at that. Oh, that is nasty. From £2.20 to 36 pence. Again, if you look at the rule, I tend to look at break. In fact, that's what's called a golden cross there. The 50-day crossing 200-day, and then a previous break the previous high. So it's crossed that and say, a previous high.
It's almost a cup and handle shape price.
Yeah. Breaking up, but you've got a gap here. There's a gap down, and that's quite nice though. Look at that. It really stuck at the gap there. It didn't go back lower on that gap there. and went back up. That's looking quite nice, and it's come down from, I don't know what the valuations are on that, to be honest, but
about 60 odd million pound market cap at the moment.
Yeah, and someone was valuing them up here and buying. So what's happened to them that they come to this level? So do you know what? The more charts I look up, you're seeing a lot of this recovery bouncing off bottoms, starting to recover, and especially in smaller nano caps, macro caps. So it's looking quite good.
I was looking at the weekend at a lot of the sort of indices and the charts and stuff. I always look at the sort of 200-day moving average just as a sort of overall general indicator. And what was interesting is the S&P is currently trading at 12.5%. The price action is trading at 12.5% above the 200-day moving average. Yeah. And when you look at the Dow Jones, that's also trading about 6.25% above the price action. And that's North America. Then you look at Europe, you've got the DAX, which is currently trading about 8.5% above the 200-day moving average. And they got FTSE 100 is trading 1% above the 200-day moving average. So there's a huge disparity between what the FTSE is doing and what the US is doing, for example. So there's a lovely peers trade there somewhere for somebody if they fancy taking on and doing the research.
And if you look at this, and also the FTSE 250 as well, for example, that's come down a lot more because that's more, domestic companies, like you got, some of the house builders in there and all that. But that's come down from 24,000 to 19,000, whereas the FTSE as 100 is a more sort of, international indices. It's done quite well, to be honest. We had the COVID dash for crash here, but since that it's held up because, of course, as well.
If you overlay the FTSE, sort of the S&P over it, I mean, we're so far behind.
Well, I find it a bit crazy because the S&P now, right, is literally, that's the all-time high up here.
Yeah.
And that was after this crazy run after, you got some 2000. Look at that run. It's nuts. It is like on steroids. It's come back. It was all in a bear market. And I think, well, that's all we've come down. We're back up. We're now a couple of percentage points off the all-time high. And
these are we going to hit a double top there?
Yeah, well, exactly. I'm thinking, but I think we could have a rollover here. I mean, went from the high, we came down at a sort of bear market rally, pretty much, and down there. It means to see if it goes above that first rally, which is 46.35. But I mean, the American markets are mad, So I'm just going to quickly look at Destiny Pharma, which is just basically news on XF73. It is an amazing. Do you know what? And I do say this, but you do get a lot of biotech companies hammered in a bear market. It's loss making, and of course they got future cash flows coming in. But you look at the sort of the forecast on Destiny Pharma, which is insane. Like I said, even for their one asset, which is not this one, which is the previous one, their targets 3 separate brokers £2.86. And this one is a £2 billion opportunity. But so that's a bit of news there. It's nice to see that. And Venture Life. And let's just finish off. Is there any more chat there? Let's look on thing. Love Justify. Yeah. Okay, I've seen that. Yes, decent from ours. Okay. Oh, I've got someone else come on online there. But let's finish off then on this bit of sort of news. Let's go to my Twitter feed to see what the result is of this.
Worst thing I've seen on Twitter today was the Clive Rowlands has passed away. So that's awful. Clive Rowlands, a great captain Wales. He coached and managed Wales, actually, and he was a manager of the British Lions. So sorry to see him go, 85 years of age. But that's off topic.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
I had the pleasure of meeting him once down at London Welsh Ground at Odear Park there, and he was a lovely, lovely gentleman.
Okay, Larson, so look at this. This is the results of this survey. Do you agree with the government confirming 100 new North Sea oil and gas licenses? I suppose where I'm tweeting it for is probably an echo chamber because a lot of investors involved. But 80% say yes, they agree with it. 20% say no. So there we are. And finally, on interest rates, this Thursday will be live for that. But we're at 5% now interest rates. The consensus is 25 basis points to 5.25. But because inflation has come down a bit, some people say maybe they won't hike. But Investec is saying they go for half a percentage point, which I think will rattle the markets.
And, I can't see that. I mean, I think that'd be crazy. I mean, taking us to 5.25%, I think the housing market's suffering enough as it is. I think I think in June, they reported a sort of 13.5% drop on house completions, which is like a 10-year low. If you ignore COVID and the pandemic lockdown, then so the government has to build houses. I think the last numbers were, I think the builders estimate they're going to complete on 150 or just under 150,000 properties or new builds this year, which is like high. The government's target is 300,000. So
yeah, they've never hit them, have they? Ever? No government's ever hit this property. It's nuts, really. I know.
But I mean, they're not even getting the 50% of it, which is is crazy.
Yeah. And do you know what? I just think the Bank of England need to pause. What's the harm in pausing? You can see inflation is not getting worse. We're now, we've racked up these interest rates very quickly. It could make a lot of damage. You keep hiking them up. It is like literally driving through the rearview mirror. And I think they have to slow down. But if they do, be aware of that. If they do half percentage point, the market's rally we've had over the last few days, I think, will come crashing to the ground. And finally, Mark, if you've got any stamps, right? Any stamps that don't have a barcode on them, they're not. Well, you can cash them in, but you can't use them after today. I bought some stamps on Friday, right? I rushed up the shop, and then he pulled the barcode off it. I didn't understand what the barcode was, and but now, if you've got stamps with no barcode, there's the best tip you'll get all day, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to use them. And however, though, commemorative and non-barcoded Christmas stamps will still be valid.
Well, they're a collector's item. You've got quite a few of those, haven't you, just?
Yeah, I've got tons of. I went long Christmas stamps last year.
Yeah, absolutely. Big buyer, big buyer.
By all means, listen. If you haven't liked and subscribed to the channel, please do that, because we are 12 p.m. now, and you can take a read.
Are we changing the name, because the name was Taking Stock, but we're thinking of changing it to Working Lunch? What does everybody think?
Yeah,
is this working lunch?
Yeah, working lunch, and we'd have to put some Brummie accents on, I think, and pretend we're Adrian Charles. I used to really like that. Indeed. I think, why don't they do it now? It's like a bit of education.
That's what we're doing. We're covering for the BBC. They don't. Stocks and shares isn't political enough for them, although we have managed to make this very political today, Justin. So fair play to us.
Okay, it's hard to avoid politics. And there we are, Investor Mac. You can exchange your non-barcode stamps for new ones. There we are. Oof. With everything else to worry about, I didn't want to have to worry about that as well. But, there we are. Cheers, everyone. Speak tomorrow. Cheers, Mark.
Thanks. Take care, guys.